Hi guys, this is Umair back with another tutorial series. This time I'm gonna be talking about Universal Windows Platform Application Development, and I'm gonna be making 8 to 10 videos, and I'll be covering most important concepts, most important topics that every Universal Windows Platform developer should know, should learn and should practice. So in this video I'm gonna be talking about data binding, and I will talk about two types of bindings. One is element binding and other is data binding. If you want to learn Universal Windows Platform Application Development, then these are the topics in these 10-12 videos. I'll be covering major topics in this Visual Studio 2015 and this UWP application development. So I have created an empty data binding project, Universal Windows Platform project. If you want to create that, just go to the file, new project, and it will open up a window, and just go to Visual C Sharp. We are going to be using C Sharp for these tutorial series, and inside the Windows Universal, and click on blank application, okay, and where you will create an empty UWP project. And I have opened this main page .xaml file. XAML stands for Extensible Application Markup Language. It is just like XML, and it is used to create the user interface for our applications, and inside it we have our CS file that is used to write C# code for working with this XML file. Alright, so let's first talk about what is element binding. So I'm gonna be creating and writing some UI. So if I go to the left side, I have this toolbox, and I have it's adding up and loading all the elements for our XAML. So let's wait. So you can see that these are the elements that we can drag and drop, but I would recommend you that don't drag or drop any element from here directly. Instead, write the elements inside this code, okay, because it will create the margin itself and it will create some problems. Alright, so now let's create a stack panel, and inside this stack panel I'm going to create a text box and a text block. So I'm going to be writing text box, and once I write text box, after that I can define its properties. So I will first give it a name. So let's give it a name, my text. Okay, let's make it a big. Horizontal alignment, center. Font size, I would give it 40, and we haven't given vertical alignment. Let's give vertical alignment to center as well, and width is 300. And another property that we want to add is our background. So let's give it a background color. I would give it FFA8DEF7. Alright, and I will close this element. So you can see on the left side that I have the output of this XAML that I have just created. This is a text box that we have created. Text box is an element in which we can write anything inside it at runtime. Okay, and after that I'm going to create a text block, and in this text block I'm going to, the text blocks is an element that is just used to show any text on the application, but it doesn't let you write anything at runtime inside it. Okay, so I will give it some properties as well. So I will give it font size 30. Okay, 30, and I will give it foreground color. Okay, and I will give it FF001C34. Okay, and I will close this element. All right, you can't see anything on the left side. If you hover your cursor on it, you will see that this is the text block. And what I'm going to do now, I'm going to bind this text block with this text block box, and whenever I will write anything inside this text box, it will reflect that value that I will write inside it, inside this text block. Alright, but before that, let me bring these both elements at the center. So I need to add some properties to my stack panel. So I will write horizontal alignment center and vertical alignment center as well. Alright, so you can see that our elements are at the center now. Okay, and I need to give it orientation as well, whether it's horizontal or vertical. So our stack panel is vertical. Alright, so now let's bind both the things, but first of all let me run this application to show you that what's happening while we run it. So our application has started, and you can see that we have our text box, and I can write anything inside this text box, but below that we have our text block. What I want to do, I want to show the same value that I write in this text box and reflect this value inside this text block that I have added under this text box. Alright, in order to do that, I need to do element binding. Okay, so let's close this application, and now I will bind this element to this text box with the help of the name that I have given to that box. Okay, so let's come to this text blocks, and I will add a property text. Alright, and this property is showing that I want to bind the value of this text box with the text property of this text block, and this shows that this is the property, and this text is having, it needed to have a string, so I need to bind with a string property of this text box. So what I will do, I will just write binding. Okay, and after that I will give it element name, and that is my text. Okay, and after that I need to give it the property name of this text box that I want to bind with the text property of this text block. So the property of this text box can be defined as path equals to text. Okay, I want to bind the text property of text box with the text property of text block. Okay, so that's been done. Now let's run this application to see if the changes are occurring or not. So I need to write something inside it. So you can see that as I write inside it, all the changes, the value in the text block is being shown up. Alright, if I remove something, the same value is being removed from the text block as well. So that was element binding. Now I need to talk about the actual data binding thing that we can do with our C# code. So now let's go and do that. So we have our XML XAML already written. We need to upgrade this XAML to show you what is data binding. So I will remove this code, and instead I will write another part of code, and I will write grid row definitions, and this will define individual rows in our UI. Alright, and after that I can define different rows with different height and width. So I will define 3 rows, and I can do that by writing row definition, and after that I can give it some height. Alright, and I will give it auto value. Anything that will add inside this row, the height of this row will be automatically increased or decreased. Okay, so rather than ending up with the closing, alright, let's add Control Z, and I will add /. Okay, and I will just copy this line and paste it 2 times below. So this will create 3 rows in my UI. Alright, and I can use this row by adding different elements. So now I will just go out of this ending grid.row definitions tag, and I will write grid dot column definitions. Okay, and now I can define column definition, and inside the column I need to define width, and the first column would be auto. The second column I will give it some pointed value, so I will write 3 star. Okay, let's paste another. Actually I don't need third column, so let's remove the third line, and after that let's add our elements. And for adding elements I will write TextBlock, and I will give it a property text equals to name grid dot row, and I need to give it the row number, that in which row or in which column this element should exist. And I have defined 3 rows and 2 columns, so I can write grid dot row equals to, and this should be in 0th row, and after that I need to give it column grid dot column, and the column should be 0. Alright, and after that I will give it some font size. Okay, and I will give it 48, margin 10, and horizontal alignment left, and we need to give it some vertical alignment as well, so vertical alignment center. Okay, let's add forward slash and close this element. So you can see that we are showing up the first row and the first column, and over this element is in the first row and the first column. Okay, now I need to add my text box. Alright, so I will write text box. Let's close this element right here, and I will give it few properties, same as I did in the element binding. So what I will do, I will first add text, and I will give it a binding, and I will give it the name of property that I will create in the model in C#, and let's give it the name of property is name. Okay, this doesn't exist right now, but I will create it after writing the XAML code inside this file. Okay, so now I need to give it some few properties with 400, and grid dot row 0, and grid dot column is 1. Okay, and you can see that the row is 0 and the column is 1. And after that we need to give it some margin. Okay, so margin is 10. I need to give it font size. Font size is 48, and horizontal alignment is center, and I need to give it a vertical alignment to center as well. Okay, so we have added these 2 things. Now let's copy these 2 lines, and I'm going to paste it 2 more times. Okay, and I'm going to change its name to roll number, and the text of third text block, I'm going to change its text property to phone. Okay, and I'm going to bind this text box text property with the property of my C# code. So let's give it, we will create a roll number property, and we will give it a phone property, and I need to bring all these things in the lower row. So I'm going to give it, this should be in the first row, and our text block should be in the first row as well. Alright, and this should be in the second row, and this should be in the second row as well. Okay, so you can see that we have aligned our elements name, roll number, phone, and our text boxes. Alright, so we are done with our XAML code. Now we need to go and create our C# code, and I need to write a few properties inside it. So I will go to the Solution Explorer, and let's right click, and I will click on Add New Item, and I will click on C# class. Okay, and I will name it student. Let's add it. Okay, and inside this class I'm gonna create few properties. So let's add property string name underscore and public string name, and let's give it get return name, and set will be name equals to value. Alright, I hope that you already know C#, because I'm not going to be explaining what's going on. This is the getter and this is the setter, and now I need to copy this one and paste it below. Okay, and now I need to change the name of other properties. So let's change it to roll number. Let's copy this one and paste it right here and right here as well, and change the property name to roll number. It should be same as the property with which we have bind right here. Okay, this value shouldn't be different from this value. Alright, now the last thing, we need to add another property, that is our phone number. So I will write phone and change it to phone as well. Copy this one, paste it right here and paste it right here. So we have created our three properties inside our student.cs class. Alright, now how does this XAML know that I need to bind this property, text property, with this property of a model that is inside this student class? I need to let this XAML know that you need to see the student class in order to bind these properties with the XAML elements. So I will go to my Solution Explorer, and I will click on this drop down arrow of main page.xaml, and there is a CS file for this main page, and I will double click it to open this up. Okay, and this is the file where we write the code behind of the UI element, whatever needs to be happened, or if we click on button, if we write anything inside this text box, then what should be triggered after working with the UI elements. We need to define it in this backend CS file. So now first of all, I will come right here and I will create an object of my student.cs class. So I will write student equals to student, and I will write student. Okay, so I have created a student object by calling its constructor. Alright, so now I need to come inside this main page constructor of this class main page and write few lines inside it. But first let's create a function below this constructor. So I will write public, and I will call this function create student. Okay, and inside this function I will use the student object, and I will call the name property and give it some name. So I will write my name, student dot roll number 1 2 3 4, student dot phone, and I will give it some numbers. Alright, and it's showing that method must have a return type, so I will write void before it. Okay, and I will call this function inside this main page constructor and after this initialize component statement. So I will write create student. So I have defined the default values for the properties of my student class. Alright, and one thing to be noticed that I have added these values inside the properties of the student class, and now I want to see whether these values that I have entered in these properties reflect in these UI elements or not. I have binded all those properties inside these text boxes. Alright, so I need to bring all those values in these text boxes. So I need to give it a context. Actually, this is the model class, that is the data context for this UI file. So I need to come inside the main page constructor and I need to set this dot data context that this xaml file is referring to the student as its data context. Alright, now if I run my application, all these values should be shown in those text boxes. So let's click on local machine. So our application have been started and you can see that the same values are being shown inside the text boxes that I added in the properties of this student model. So you can see that I have binded these properties with the UI elements, and I can bind any type of property, whether it's a boolean. If it's a boolean, I can bind this property value with the radio buttons, with the check boxes. If I have an array as a property, I can bind it with a drop down. I can also bind different series of values with a slider, and this is the way that we can work with more efficiently. So this was the introduction of our data binding. There is another type of binding called data template binding, and I want to discuss about it in my next video, and that is a kind of advanced data binding but very important and very beneficial in many universal Windows application. Make sure you like this video and subscribe my channel and comment below if you have any question. Thanks for watching.